So introducing our next speaker, our Lord Orville Thomas. Lord Robert Orville Thomas is currently a member of the International Association of Arbitration. He's a member of the Chartered Institute of Legal Executive and has a master's in international law and a PhD in international law. He's pursuing his PhD in international trade law. Lord Thomas currently works as a legal consultant to several law firms in the US, Europe, Middle East, and the UK. He has been a legal consultant in various practice areas, of which include criminal law, corporate law, immigration law, and human rights law. He has over 15 years experience with legal procedures and court cases in international law and within the UK. Having worked in public and private sector with several governments officials, Lord Thomas has had several appointments. He sat as the Chief Justice for the Indigenous Cherokee Nation. He sits as Lord Chief Justice for the Sovereign Court of Polynesian Atoll Hawaiian Kingdom. He also sits as a Lord Chief Justice of FANA, and he sits as a senior judge to the Kingdom of Colonial St. John. Lord Thomas is also a senior advisor to His Royal Highness King John. In 2018, Lord Thomas was appointed as Judge Thomas for the Sovereign ICJ ICC. Judge Thomas was appointed the head of the legal affairs for the Sovereign ICJ ICC, dealing with the financial sector for historical assets and redemption. In 2017, Mr. Robert Orville Thomas was appointed as Lord Thomas and as a sovereign for the Sovereign ICJ ICC in the capacity of notary and a certified sovereign underwriter under the section of the First Republic registers, dealing with the legalities of banking redemption and historical assets. Lord Robert Thomas was appointed the chairman of Cross-Pollination and Arts Association and partnered of the Royal Society of Arts. Lord Thomas is the founder of Global Legal Solutions Platform, Make Your Complaint, and an advisor to the several officials in the UK and internationally. Currently, Lord Thomas is a consultant to clean energy group Drenel, helping with green energy initiatives across various continents, including Africa, Asia, Europe, and the UK. Lord Thomas has worked in partnership with one of the commanders of the British Empire, CBE, Mr. James Braffett, and has done so for more than 12 years. Lord Thomas and his business partner from UK Defence Minister, Mr. Ivor Kaplan, consults in a number of areas internationally. He was also appointed a UN ambassador of Walmart in the capacity of legal expert attached to the Geneva office. He's equally appointed as the UN ambassador to POTAC Security, head of the legal department dealing with matters in international security within the New York office. Lord Thomas currently sits on several boards, both nationally, internationally, and international committees, private companies, and charity organizations. With no further ado, I invite Lord Thomas to share.
Thank you very much. A pleasant good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. It's a privilege and an honor to have my dear brother, Dr. Andre Thomas. It's kind of weird greeting Dr. Thomas to Dr. Thomas. And it feels kind of weird also having to say Thomas to Thomas, but thank you very much. The Lord has definitely blessed us with, like it said in the scriptures, I will establish your name. And most certainly, he has established this name in terms of making impact and change across the world. I want to greet all the fellow panelists, all the people that are listening across from different parts of the globe. I like the name Daniel and Esther because these are two significant people in the history of global change. Esther, because of the radical changes she did for the people of Israel during a time of austerity and problems, and she was able to be a game changer by strategically where she was positioned. And Daniel, a man that impacted the empire of Mesopotamia right until current times of the recent days of Baghdad. And that influence of what he created during the Babylonian system, how he was able to redirect things, is actually a remarkable piece of history. I am going to see if I can share my screen because I would like to um, get across to you what I have prepared. And while I do that, I'm going to see, okay, this is it. And share. Okay. And please let me know, Dr. Sherry, can this be viewed? Possible I
Yes,
am not.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So let's enlarge this and let's do this here. Um, sorry. Okay. Right, and so we need to go back to the very beginning. Um, yeah, that's it. Now, while I was contemplating on what to share with you, I know that we have heard quite a bit of preaching and teaching over the years. And I believe that we are in a time where things are shifting and the paradigm is also shifting in many aspects. And so the question that comes between the shifting and all this movement and commotion is really and truly, are we a participant or are we a bystander? And the difference between the two is that one has to take action and the other one will just stand and be part of the crowd. And I certainly believe that that is not what is taught through scriptures. I believe some of us are the only Jesus some will ever see. Some of us are the only hope of life some will ever have. And so is when we decide to become a Daniel who could have sat back and look and say, well, it is happening. It does not matter. He decided to address it spiritually, but also address it practically. And he took steps to actually show what he meant. It brings to mind the founder of the Franciscan movement who said something that I find very relevant. And St. Francis of Assisi said, I will preach the gospel, and then, if necessary, I will speak. If necessary, then I will use words. And what was he saying is that we can sit in a place where we have our Bibles, or we can sit in a place where we do something with that Bible. We go into somewhere where we fill those gaps. If there is a need, how is it filled? If there is a need, how is it satisfied? If there is a need, how is it reached? Is it we wait on someone to do it, or is it that we decide, actually, I am going to do something about it? Or is it that it becomes something where we said, let me see who will start? And what I want to apply here as the key part of wisdom, you see, I like what Dr. Andre kicked off with. You need wisdom. Information anybody can have. Application of that information is where is key. Let's take, for example, a pilot. He may have 20 degrees. He may have X amount of studies, exams he has passed. But until he does not have over a certain amount of hours of flight experience, it's very unlikely he will be entrusted to carry a unit with the life of others. I believe that that is more relevant today than ever because there is a lack in the leadership that is not being increased. And how do you fill the gap in the marketplace? Someone said that if you are like everyone else, you will just be another number. Only people that steps out of the ordinary become extraordinary. Anyone that decides to remain ordinary is what is doing what everyone else is doing. Extraordinary people stands out with a difference. They stand out in how they apply themselves. So in order for you to fill the gap, in order for you to be visible and acceptable to fill the gap in the marketplace, be it in church, be it in government, there has to be some extraordinary action taken. What does that mean? It's a sermon that Christ spoke about. He said, if somebody asks you to go 1 mile, make sure you go an extra one. What is the extra mile required in filling in the gap is where most of the people are not willing to go. It's very easy to sit and analyze, criticize, judge, but who is there willing to start? Who is there willing to get it wrong? Who is there willing to take the risk to say, I am going to give this a try in order to make a difference for there to be a legacy? None of our historians ever achieve anything by just sitting down and being like everyone else. Every single one of them stepped out of their comfort zone, stepped out of where they were, and went into the extraordinary. Now, I want to get to the 6 key points I would like to cover, and I will run through them very quickly. And these applies to me in terms of my profession. So number one is transcending the barriers of the legal profession. 2, the ladder of success. 3, step taken into progress. Then we get into filling in the gap. And then 5, breaking those barriers. And 6, a God-led approach. I left it at 6 because 7 is the perfection of God. And that's where he comes in to complete the rest that we have to do. But let's look at the first thing. In progressing, the first thing we look at is success. And everybody is familiar with that terminology, success. Everybody can tell you, oh, yes, I know what success stands for. I know what success is. Everybody can tell you that. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is the status of having achieved and accomplished an aim or objective. And that is great. But here's the thing. Whose objective are you achieving? Your own agenda or the agenda of your design? And the term fish out of water comes to mind because you see, you can be doing all the right things the right way at the wrong time and in the wrong place. And the relevance of that wisdom is hardly ever taught. I am doing the right thing. I'm doing it the right way, but you are a fish out of water. So even though you have activity, you do not have productivity. And in doing so, you will be going into a cycle of repetition, which won't show the success that is deserved. The second thing we look at when thinking about success is achievement of a desired vision or plan goal. And there is nothing wrong in having that. We need to have desired vision and plan goals. But I don't know how many of you have been there where you looked at something so wonderful you wanted. And then when you get there and you taste it and you wonder, was this really it? You know, is that what I was killing myself up for? So that needs to be considered in context of your divine purpose. Success is considered attaining wealth, prosperity, and or fame. Success is also considered just the opposite of failure. But I want to leave you with one of my first nuggets of wisdom, and it's this. Everyone is taught how to overcome failure, but very few are taught how to overcome success. What do I mean by this? Everyone is taught what success is. Everyone is taught, yes, and there is this mixed conception that if you have a big house, a flash car, a certain amount of money in the bank account, and everyone knows your name, you have attained success. However, Christ put it in these words: What's the purpose of gaining the whole world and losing your soul? He then proceeds to call him fool. Today your soul will be required of you. And where are you going to spend your eternity? In other words, how things are concluded are as important as how they are started. I remember reading the story of Gideon, and everybody speaks about Gideon, and he's a great man and is a man of valor. And I decide, because I'm the kind of person that will go at not just the text, but the context and the out part of the text and the after text and the history related to it. Some people cannot be bothered. I have to. And when I got to the end of Gideon's story, what was his legacy? His success was marred, tarnished by the fact that his youngest son slaughtered all of his other children and wiped out his existence for the future. In other words, within the house, the legacy was destroyed. And I was advising a client once who said to me this. He asked me to look at the probate of his will. And I said, look, sir, I don't like doing probates and will. He said, no, I trust you. I want you to do that. And I looked at it, and he selected not his firstborn, but his second son. And I found it strange. I said, why have you selected your second son? He said, why do you think? I said, well, I'm shocked because it says here that he's had more disaster than anybody. He's been bankrupt 2 times. He's caused a lot of havoc. And he said, and where is he today? I said, oh, yeah, he's got another company. He said, how much is it worth? And I said, well, about 4.5 million. He said, that's your answer. Each time he fell down, he knew how to get up. That is why that's the one I am leaving the legacy to. He said, my oldest one is a silver spoon boy. If I leave the company to him, the moment disaster strike, he is going to capitulate. He has not been taught how to look beyond success. He does not know how to overcome that. Rather, he's overcome by it. So I'll leave you to contemplate on that as you go further. My next point is vision. A future-orientated concept. Is that really what it is? Is it vision a mental image of a possible or desirable future state? Or does vision describe apparitions for the future? Or is it a fundamental part of our existence? Well, the answer is it's all of them. You see, majority of human beings rely on sight. And in doing so, they neglect some of their other senses. So a part of the brain, and I'm going to come to that in a bit, a part of the brain that is meant to be operated becomes handicapped because there is a constraint or a drag in only what people can see. And anybody that has done psychology would have seen that when they talk about perception, they tell you that perception only paints 50% of the reality that's what in front of you, because you might be looking at a tree in front of you and believing that is actually a jungle, when in reality it's not. So vision is key. Without vision, the people perish. And vision is not something that you imagine, you make up. Vision is, where are you looking to go? Where are you looking to be? Where are you looking to arrive? Not just for your personal target. And here's the part. When we say we are Christians, the vision cannot be a self-centered vision. You cannot have God and self in one. It does not work. Either you having his vision or your vision. You see, the Latin word tells you that anything that has do or da is dual, and dual is 2 visions. So it becomes dos, which means 2 visions. And that's where you end up with a problem with division. That's the construct of the word. And division is understood when there is a conflict within a place or a house or a business or a church concept. But if there is a division between your own self because you cannot see clearly what you are meant to see. You are going to be a divided house within your own persona. And as David said, he learned how to conquer all the external battles, but his greatest struggle was overcoming the battle within. And I can guarantee you, folks, if you're fighting with yourself, no matter who prays for you, doesn't matter how much oil is poured on you, doesn't matter if you're going to fasting for 50 days, that type is not going to be coming out until you say, I want to receive my sight. Vision is critical. And by vision, it means also how your mind is set up. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. So that's my second nugget to you. I'll conclude by saying this where vision is concerned. If you have blurred image, you will have blurred thoughts. If you have blurred thoughts, you will have blurred actions. You cannot make a change in a marketplace or in any government if what you can see is not right, if what you are able to perceive is not correct. Next point that I'm going to run through very quickly. Action reflect your values and belief. My first point here, I want to talk about a famous word we all hear about, motivation. I like the construct of languages because they give you what is meant. You see, the word motivation is a combined word in one abstract. It stands for motive for actions. And when somebody does not feel motivated because of the type of visions they have, their motive for action is going to be equally affected. And it doesn't matter if you drag them, the motive for their action is wrong. So therefore, the outcome is going to be wrong. So let's ask the question then, how is motivation formed? Motivation is formed from habits. How do you develop a habit? Something you constantly keep on doing. If you have become an individual that feels okay in sitting down and doing nothing, that is what your habit is going to be. If you have a habit of being highly critical of people, the motive for your action is going to be criticism. And while you're focusing on criticizing someone else, you are developing a habit, which means division. Your sight is shifted somewhere else rather than looking into a mirror and call self-analysis. So you develop a habit that does not assess yourself. Can they change? Yes, patterns can be altered. There is something called the 21-day rule. According to wiser men than me that were here, my predecessors, they say that it takes 21 days to establish a habit. So anybody with a bad habit, please bear in mind, it took them at least 21 days for that bad habit to form. It didn't happen overnight, okay? And whatever they say to you, it took at least 21 days. But here's the thing, it equally takes another 21 days to break that bad habit. So you're working on a 42-day cycle on any habit you pick up, the 21 days to make it and the 21 days to break it, minimum. And if you haven't spent 21 days trying to break it, and here's the thing with people, after day 3 or day 4, I'm finished. Dr. Andre, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm done. I've done enough and, it's okay. I want it now. One of the curses of generation X and Y, as they're called today, is that everybody have the concept of the pin machine. You know, PT, PT, tita, and it open up. Instant reward, instant gratification. And that's where the problem is. Patterns that are established in that way have to be altered. Then we get to belief. So you go from your vision to what is your habit to then what becomes your belief. And the reason why I'm doing this, because if you are not changed, you are not going to be an agent of change. So the beginning of being applicant starts with how you are designed. You see, you can borrow the words of Confucius. You can borrow the words of Socrates. You can borrow the words of Aristotle. But when you have to apply it, it has to be you being transmitted. And that is what people buy. A lot of preachers are getting up on stages and they're talking, they're borrowing Dr. Andre's words. And this is why it is not relevant, because their belief is not a conviction into that. When they're trying to project something across, people smells it. It comes out. Your belief has not been conditioned to that vision. You have just borrowed somebody else's word. You have just borrowed someone else's conviction, and therefore it is not yours. And it doesn't matter if it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter. You cannot do that. So belief is something that we hold to be truth. Value, on the other hand, is a standard or principle considered to be important. What is your belief and what is your value? You see, the result of this is that we generate a conviction from this. I asked once somebody this question: what are the basis for your belief? What is it based on? Is it based on Oprah Winfrey? Is it based on CNN? Is it based on Google? Where is the actual substance that actually, yeah, I'm not trying to preach. I'm trying to get to something here. You see, Christ said, I am the truth and the way and the life. In order to get to way and life, he had to get to truth. And truth is only a place of conviction. It's not a prototype. It's a person. It's what you are and it's what you do. And so therefore, when we are talking about the result of belief and value, it comes as what you are. You have to become a part of truth yourself. And let me carry on, because it's not appreciated. I'm just running through this very quickly. Then we get to the last point here of this segment, which is your experiences. So experience can be determined by values and belief. Most of our choices are based on this. What do I mean by this? When people have become accustomed to certain things, they have that in their database as their experience reference book. Men and women do that for relationship. They do that for business choice. They do that for financial decision. But here's the problem. Your experiences are only limited to the demographic into where you are. In order to transcend, in order to become an impact, one of my greatest blessings that I had, and I'm not sure if my mom is on because she was to come on, but I was blessed with the opportunity of living in more than one culture. I had to hear Spanish. I had to hear Portuguese. I had to hear some people speaking French. And all of a sudden, this had me on a brink. Am I going to become psychologically nuts, or am I going to try and learn what they are saying to me in order to survive? My experience could have gone either way at that junction. I needed to know what I stood for. Knowing your values and belief are as important as anything else for a part of your mindset. Mindset is what the scripture describes as stronghold. If you have established a mindset, stronghold is not spirits flying in the air. No, the strongholds are here. And if you create those strongholds, the scripture says you are going to act as you think. As a man thinketh, so is he. So wherefore, that is what is going to take place. All right. What are beliefs? Beliefs originate from your thinking. Thoughts are repeated over and over. These thoughts become belief. So if you are thinking one thing, be careful. Watch your thinking, because that will derive your action. Our beliefs are the drivers of most outcomes in our life. If you believe that all you are good to be is a cleaner, which is nothing wrong with it, that's all you will ever do. And it doesn't matter who goes Shandara, you just believe that. If all you believe you're going to do is become a fisher rather than own the fish market, rather than selling the fish to everybody yourself, that is what it's going to be. It becomes a part of the drivers of the outcomes in your life. If I had stood and looked and believed that all I was good for is to be wearing a slippers under the hot sun, and that's what my future was going to be, I would not push past the barriers of my personal conditioning of belief. My surround product of environment would have limited me to where I could go. The power of the brain. I will not dwell on this for the sake of time, but I will give you this. What you believe to be true, the mind will search to prove you right. If in your mind there is something called the Kundalini nerve inside of the back of the brain, which is where a lot of the concentration of what the psalmists call meditate, ponder on, chew on, you can do the Latin word is to masticate on it. In other words, like you take something and you adapt. When you do that, is what resonates here. And when that resonates there, you're going to look to see, well, I believe I can make the cake. I know I can. Let me try. And even if you make a disaster, you are going to try. So, and here's the point I want to go at. Why does that happen? Because whatever we focus on increases in our sight. What do I mean by this? If I'm looking at this bottle down here, close to the camera, that's all you can see. The moment I retract this bottle, you can see a panorama behind me. If your focus is just your negative situation, is just the bad things people have done to you, that's what's going to happen. That's all that's going to take place. The moment you pull yourself back from it, you shift the paradigm and you get to see differently. How do we identify belief? Well, it's based on what we tell ourselves. There could be the statements such as life is, people are, I am, that's the conviction. That's how it's established. Repetition, conviction. And if you keep on telling yourself you can do something, you will do it. If you keep on telling yourself you can't do it, you won't do it. I remember everybody told me what I could not do. The first time I went to one of my best friends, be careful of frenemies. The best time for me, I went and I said, I have the plan to establish this, and I intend to study 4 things, and I intend to get into. He looked at me and he said, you are crazy. You can't do that. He told me everything I could not do. And that deflated me. That hit me. Yeah. And then I read one of my writings. Please make writings, people. It's very important. And this writing I made, I wrote many years before. Sometimes the worst enemy of best is good. So he gave me some good advice, but he did not give me the best advice. It was based on his theory, his limitation, and I did not hold it against him. About 3 years ago, because we're still friends, and I left him there. And don't rush to dismiss people. Psalms 23 says he prepares a table before those that are your enemies. But actually, the translation says those that are anguishes, those that are people to punish you, or those that are tormentors. So he prepares a table before them. You cannot escape the point of table preparation by Psalms 23. You can try, but I recommend you don't. You will waste your time. So I went back and saw him, and I said to him, shall we have lunch before the pandemic? He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing everything you told me I could not do. Have a look. And he went, wow, I did not think it was possible. I said, it's all right. Thank you for being my goalpost. I said, you gave me a target to hit at. And I said, boy, did I not go for it. I said, with every fiber in my being. And he laughed and he said, could you come and speak to my staff? I said to him, one day, it shall come to pass. Now, the reason why you get stopped from becoming relevant is to do with limitation. Limitation is the greatest barrier that any person face in their path to success, to progress. If you look at your ability, you will be limited. If you look at God's ability, you become unlimited. You have to understand that his ability is the unlimited. Therefore, there is nothing he cannot do. I was saying this about 3 weeks ago to a person. My belief in God is I can walk into a place, and if he wants to, he can turn the worst person in there on my behalf. He can make a plane land for me. I've seen him do it. He can make somebody come and don't know why they have to speak to me. So my limitation has been removed from what I can do. I recognize that in what I can do, I can only maybe walk about 2 miles. I used to be able to walk 10. Um, if I look at it, oh, wow, I'm limited. But if I look at his ability, that's when I tap into the unlimited. Beliefs develop maybe I am not good at making decision. I can't learn new skill. I will never be able to. Those are things that will take you into a place I should have, I could have, I will always, and it create a negative construct, which will, Muhammad Ali said when he went to fight Cassius Clay, the reason why he used the terminology, yeah, he sting like a bee and he flies like a butterfly, is because he knew if he got close to George Foreman, the punch of that man would have knocked him out. So he knew he needed to defeat him here mentally. And he said 80% of his fights he wanted here first. If you see yourself defeated, there's nothing no one can do for you. No prayer, no fasting. This is an important point here. Value versus valuable. So values are the values you hold. But what about the valuable things that you should have? Which now raises the question, what is valuable? So one of the questions I was asked, how did you change your story? And I'm going to come to that when I'm finishing. You see, I understood this, the power of value creation. What does that mean? Giving value to what seems to be of no value is a skill. And I want you to leave with this today. Think about the worst area in the city you live. Think about it. Picture it right now. Whether it's in Barbados, whether it's in America, whether it's in the Caribbean, UK, wherever. And you take there whatever the world considers of value. So let me say a famous celebrity, a superstar, which the only star is God, but never mind. You take there a superstar, and then you pave that road with some gold, and you put some nice vehicles there. I guarantee you the next day, that house is worth 3 times its value. Somebody looked at that, and today we accept it as gentrification. Value acquisition and value addition is something in the kingdom you are called to do. But you need to know what is your value and what are the valuables you are bringing and how do you make something valuable. Because when you are valuable, you become invaluable and therefore you become irreplaceable. So there is no way wherever you move, somebody won't be looking for you, because wherever you go and you touch, like Joseph, you add value. Wherever you go around, it add value. Like Abraham, whatever he touched, he was in the more barren place. It added value. It multiplied. That is what it means by that multiplication. And that is what I would like to say to you. Have you discovered your niche of adding value? I don't look at problems. I look at solutions. Somebody said to me a week ago that I turned around and they called me and they said, can you come on this panel? I want you to do this. And I said, I can't. And the guy looked flabbergasted and he said to me, that's not possible. I said, what's not possible? He said, you are known as Dr. Solution. I said, excuse me? He said, yes, we don't expect to hear from you. There is not a way. I said, no, I didn't say there is a way. I said, right now, I cannot look at that. He said, oh, so can we come back another time? I said, not right now. He said, take as long as you need, so long as we can get the solution. You see, there is a value to be added. And that is what makes you in business, in ministry, in government relevant, If you leave a legacy of adding value, your name will be echoed for generations. But what value have we added? And let me bring it back now to the church. What value has been added in the community where you are? What value has been added in the workplace where you are? What value has been added in the profession that you do? What has been done? I'll leave you with a thought. Now, let's look at beliefs and a growth mindset. We all think, we all make choices, we all have the capacity to grow, and that is true. How do we do this? I'll run through it very quickly. Yeah, you have inspiration. Your inspiration becomes innovation. Your innovation becomes your determination. When you have determination, you will develop a passion. And that passion is what will enhance your vision. Then you have excellency. Then you have the best, not just good. Then you become something above that. Yeah? When you start believing that you can, it becomes a reality. And then change can happen. So, a few action points, please. Establish goals, create association, and assign responsibility. And this means also with the people that you work with. What type of people are you working with? Yeah, clarity of your current position. Identify the gap. Yeah, try and find time to brainstorm your options and look at empowering possibility even in your thinking. Okay, then you identify the resources and create an accountable action plan. By that, what does that mean? That you're accountable to yourself. It's not a free man, do whatever I like, go whenever I feel like, wake up whatever time. That's irresponsibility. You have to start with self accountability. All right. Now we get to what is about me. And I will run through this very quickly on the barriers of the legal profession. And I believe is a general barrier for most of us. The first thing that I will point out to you is that we must identify that there are cultural differences. And cultural differences is not just about you are from an Asian culture, I am from an African culture. Cultural differences has to do with the way people do business, the way people think in a particular group. How do they see it? You know, if you're in Trinidad, they tell you, boy, I'm gonna lime. If you go to Jamaica, they say, yeah, man, I chill. If each place have a culture that is acceptable, you go to the Mediterranean, and if you try to work between 2 and 5, forget about it. Everybody's having a siesta. You got to understand that that's the cultural perception. And you try and go and change that, you have a problem. Okay? Second point is that is looked at as a barrier in the legal profession, which I face, is personal background. People judge based on another person's personal background, but equally, you are judged based on your personal background. What school did you go to? What university did you attend? What did your family do? Were they carpenters? Were they builders? Were they just, you know, the people of the road? What did they do? And that creates my next point, which is an unconscious bias. And the biggest trouble with unconscious bias is a predetermined judgment against people. And we ourselves need to be cautious of not doing that. That when we look at someone, we don't have unconscious bias against them. Daniel had to overcome unconscious bias, and so did Esther. And if we're talking about a platform of Daniel and Esther, unconscious bias is something that we need to be very careful of. Last but not least is a lack of opportunities. And it's measured in two ways. The circle is so tight, nobody gets access. And two, some people think I will never make it. So I graduated, but I will never make it. My opportunities will never come. If you don't have an opportunity, create your own. Create your own. Yeah. Find a balance. And faith, belief versus demands of the profession. How do I identify these? I just have one point here: moral versus money. And what do I mean by this? When you decide to make a stand, for what is right, even if you don't see it now, you will reap the rewards in the future. You got to find a balance where you are not compromising your values just for the sake of money. It doesn't matter what the profession demands. You're not going to sell out anything. And what has happened today with the leadership is that there is a lot of selling out. The people who were meant to make a difference, their morals were compromised by money. Their values were ignored based on money or gratification or reward or however you want to call it. For you to find the balance, yes, you have to have an income, but you also have to have a standard. What is that going to be? My journey, and I'm finishing now, my story. You see, I've had many people judge my glory without knowing my story. And many people who think they know me, I have had to look at them and say, you have no clue. I don't normally tell 90% of people about my achievements. Dr. Thomas will tell you, I hardly talk about them. If we go into a meeting, I don't really mention it. People just ask, how did you achieve that title? And we would be here for hours if I was to explain it. But all I can say, but God. Was I the most qualified person to be the judge of others? No, I wasn't. But I had to learn how not to be judgmental. And that came from the school of hard knocks. A clear indication of where you are called to be is your dissatisfaction with something. And I was not happy with what I was seeing within the legal profession, where most of my colleagues lived for the penny. Billable hours, I don't have nothing against it, but they won't care about a person's life. They did not care about what happened, and so they became rudimentary. I decided I wanted to do things differently, and I didn't do it for no one to notice me. I just did it because the moment I discover that something is wrong, I want to put it right. Until the point that I don't know, you may have me. But the moment I find out, are you saying to me that if I eat too many McDonald's, I'm going to gain 10 kilos? Thank you. I don't need to eat anymore. Let me put that right. Are you saying to me that if I drink too much fizzy drink, I'm going to have a bloated stomach? I don't need to find anymore. These are examples I'm giving to say that in climbing the ladder of success, I had to adjust and adapt. And I asked God one thing, to help me never to see myself as if I deserved it. It was my right, because it wasn't. It was by His choice, His favor. I ended up in places of the corridors of power that I shouldn't have been. Today, tasked with the responsibility to look at others, saying to me, you are the judge for 42 million people, 2,000 islands. I started to scratch my hair, and I gained a few grays after that, because just the thought alone was, I said, why me? And the council of the king said to me, because you're the only person that really cares about the people and don't care about politics. You can't be bought, you can't be compromised. But to get to that point, there was a journey, there was a story. And that is where you can't shortcut life. You are going to have your own story to tell. How did it happen? What happened? When did it happen? And it's from there that you're going to be able to draw strength to make the decisions. People talk about Solomon, Solomon's wisdom was developed in austerity. He grew up as a reject. He grew up as a bastard child to come back to be king. Nobody looks at that story, how his wisdom developed. And you see, you need to have your scars because your scars are your stars. No general has stars without scars. And unfortunately, today's generation wants to have the stars, but no scars to show for it. They don't have the battle marks. They don't have the mark on their knees, Dr. Thomas, in prayer. They call it neology. They don't have the marks of the problems of having to shave off your hair because it started to fall out because of having to deal with so many things. Those are scars, but it's what makes your testimony. And I will not say much about me other than I am grateful that at this age and stage, I've been given that opportunity to go forward. Taking some steps to achieve progress. I'll be very quick with this. Number one, please, please change your thinking. You cannot carry the same thinking into new actions. You have to change your thinking. Start thinking. Robert Kiyosaki said, if you want to become a millionaire, you have to start thinking like one. And it's very true. Step two, start looking at things in a different light. Whatever you have before you, change the perspective. Perception is key. Turn and look a little bit to the left, to the right. Your vanishing point, try and shift it. Christopher Columbus, they said when he was sailing and he got lost, he took the ship and steered in a different direction, even though he didn't know where he was going. And that's when he landed in Trinidad. Sometimes at the very key point, that's what is needed. 3, measuring progress. Understand that you will only reach as far as you can see, as I said earlier. You have to measure your progress. How much have you progressed? What have you done? Step 4, never give up. Doesn't matter how many times you try and fail, never give up, especially if God has told you that's what you are called to be and do. David was called to be king. God anointed, hey, celebration. But he had to wait over 23 years to receive the crown that was promised as a boy. And he never gave up. Had he given up, he would have never yet told the story we know about today. From defeating Goliath to sitting on the throne, there was a long journey. That's what made him a great king. Everybody else, within a year or two, had the crown on their head. The longest lasting king. Isn't it ironic? What you sow, what you reap. He sowed in tears, reaped in joy. He had to wait 23 years, but he also reigned more than them. And it's an analogy to look into. Step 5, do not be afraid to try again, even when you are down. Filling in the gap means becoming a voice, a symbol of leadership. The gap for legal solutions for nations and that are looking for autonomy and true sovereignty is just one part of the whole thing. But you are the key to it. We are the key to it. What we do matters. How we do it matters. Break the barriers, whether it be skin colors, whether it be difference, whether it's being social background, break it and have a God-led approach. Maintain the standard and stay ahead. What is a God-led approach? An approach that understands is God's direction, is His doing, as Christ said, is His will I came to do. Remember, you can. God bless you.
Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. We just had I'll just read maybe 2 or 3 of the comments as we can keep, because you just have to see what they're saying here. Food for thought. This is very deep. Thank you, God, for this presentation. So powerful. Thank you, Lord Thomas, for breaking this down so eloquently. This is a great teaching. We have comments from Suriname. We have comments from all over the world of people just saying an amazing presentation. So thank you so much. They said they've gained strength from your teaching today. This is very potent. So there's just a lot of great comments. So thank you so much. We know that you are on the other side of the world, and we appreciate you for spending time with us and just sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much, sir.